Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first episode of Beyond the Red Door in 2024. We made it to the new year. Exciting, exciting. Of course, my name is Austin Dime, joined by my lovely, beautiful co-host, Mr. Dominick Perry.
I
Dom,
want
how you
to.
doing?
I'm doing great, but I really want to count of how many times you said "lovely" in every episode when referring to me. It's a bad thing, but I think I really need to start counting my blessings in the physical form because
Oh,
it's
I,
them
I thought you
flying.
were me. I need to change up my adjectives
No, it's
on the
very
fly.
appreciative that you go out of your way to call me lovely every time. It really raises the mood of the podcast.
Well, I'm glad that you appreciate it. Maybe we can get Sean on to rewatch the videos as he's editing and figure that out. Um, But yeah, as I kind of said at the beginning, this is the first episode of 2024. We're recording this on January 4th, so right after the beginning of the new year. And we've got kind of a lot of stuff today to talk about on the rundown. We're going to talk about the holidays. We want to talk about some of the stuff going on the undergrad side in terms of their new leadership e-board that they kind of elected. We want to talk about some of our goals, our personal and professional goals for 2024. And then we have our first interview with our new formatting. So I think we're both kind of excited about that. We have Mr. Josh Miller who's going to stop in at the back end of the podcast just to talk about himself and some of the stuff that he's doing with the ABC. So I think we should kind of dive right into this. What do you think?
I am excited to go in depth, and I am excited to talk about my Christmas, and I hope you're
Yes,
excited
yes.
too because I want to hear about Shelly's Christmas.
All right, let's hear about your Christmas first. I'll let you
Oh,
dive
you
in.
know what? Okay. So my Christmas is pretty good. I did spend a lot of it traveling. I went down to my folks for Christmas and stayed all the way through Christmas Eve. I then had to drive back up here, and I was here for Christmas all the way through like the 30th. So I went down to my parents. It was a great time. It was just kind of really relaxing, and that's the nice thing about going down to my folks. Is I I'm happy to I do a lot of like the farm stuff, like help, like for instance, like carry wood and stuff like that. But it's no bother to me because I know I'm not gonna have any thought in my head. I'm just gonna do this, relax. There's no expectations of me. Don't have to do a thing. Like help work, help with dinner and stuff like that. But I'm just there to chill, and there's no brain activity, and that's the best feeling.
That's
The
like the
drive,
best thing that you can do for Christmas.
yeah, and that's what's really nice, and that's what I needed. Is just no brain power, no brain thought. It was a great time. And the driving too. Driving was really easy. It was a really warm Christmas this year.
Yes,
And
yes,
there
it
was
was.
not many people traveling. I cannot tell you how much I didn't have to deal with traffic. And generally, I have to deal with traffic once I start getting back onto I-94, but there was still no traffic to be found, which is insane by traveling standards. Like, I guess growing up, I had this expectation that even on like the major highways, it's going to be back to back, people fighting each other from inside their cars, kind of deal with the traffic. But there was, I mean, I could fall asleep on the road, maybe because I drive that 4.5 hours quite a lot, but it was nothing to me, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't really see a lot of traffic either in my travel, and obviously, mine was or a lot less than you had to drive. Because what was your drive like? Five, I would say
Four
5 hours.
hours,
4 hours.
25 minutes to my parents' house. Generally, I make like a 15-minute pit stop in either Black River Falls or Viroqua because they both
Okay.
have reasonably sized quick trips. There's also a really nice new quick trip out of New Richmond, Wisconsin, which is just massive. It's a huge truck stop quick trip, and I love those because they had like aisles and stuff, like not like the normal ones you get in the grocery store. It's just open space, like you could play shuffleboard in the middle of the place.
I mean, I love me a good quick trip. Favorite gas station
Hmm.
ever. I miss them
Hmm.
every day.
Yeah.
um, but no, I mean, I'm glad that you got to go home to your family and get some of that relaxation and rest. That's pretty much how mine was too. I mean, I went home. I was home for I think 3 days. So I went home Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then came back to the Quad Cities on Tuesday. Um, but I literally did I did absolutely nothing those 3 days I was home. I was like exhausted from work and just like I think just the year in general. So it was like went straight home. Like 2 of those days, I napped like for hours, which was just unusual because I'm not somebody that takes naps a lot. But I think that just shows how exhausting of a year it's been. But um, overall, I mean, Christmas was really good. I got to go home and meet my nephew for the first time, so that was really exciting. He is adorable. Um, and just, be with family. I think almost all of our family was there for Christmas, like including my extended family, which was nice. That's the first time it's been like that in a while. Um, we had like, I think it was one cousin that was missing. So that was pretty sweet. And then in terms of Shelly's, I mean, I mean, she had a good one. She doesn't. My cat hates the cars. So the drives there and back were rough, but when she got there, I mean, she had a large house to run around in compared to my apartment. So she likes running up and down the stairs and stuff. So I'm sure she had a good time. She got some nice
You
little.
does she like being chased? My cat likes being chased up and down the stairs. It is exhausting.
I wouldn't say like well, I don't know. I mean, she enjoys like when people follow her. I don't know if it's considered like chasing. I'm not sprinting up and down the stairs constantly, but
Oh man, let me tell you, after like 4 times going up and down, you're done for.
oh, I can imagine. I mean, so like my bedroom's in the basement now, and she likes being up high. I mean, that's how cats are, right? So like she
Mm-hmm.
was up in my like mom's office and like my sister and my sister's bedroom, like upstairs with the baby a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. So it was not, like I said, it was kind of similar. Like it was nice to just relax, decompress, get ready for this next year because I think it's going to be very, very, very busy. So yeah, I think that kind of is a good little segue into kind of our goals for 2024. I mean, I'm planning on it being a very fantastic year. I hope you are as well. But like I said, I think, well, obviously we had our episode where we kind of talked about like last year. There's lots of ups and downs, lots of different stuff happening in our lives, and now it's like I think this is the year that I'm hoping will be like my I don't even know, like my stable like
Man, you're just
start
hoping for a
start
breather.
yeah, like start. I want to start making advances on a lot of my goals now that I maybe haven't been able to hit as much in the past. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know. You broke it up into three categories on our rundown. Do you want to? Should I let you go first? You want to do the?
I can do it. So obviously I take my goals. I don't want to say a little bit more seriously because everyone takes their goals in the general sense seriously, but I think I overwork and put more time than generally necessary for goals. So I break it down into a bunch of different categories, but I kind of wanted to sum it up into like a little bit of three, and
Mhm.
that's physical, emotional, and giving back. Because physical and emotional, they're two separations. Giving back is just a different one. I do like to put giving back goals because there's no reason for me to keep genuinely taking, people have given me advice, people have given me reasons to go forth. And I think, how am I going to pass that on, pay it forward, give it, give back in that way. So I really try to balance it between all those three. Like though giving back is a separate one, it really encompasses everything else.
Mhm.
I know it's like a long-winded expression, but I don't know. I'm really weird about goals. We can chat about it sometime. So first and foremost, physical. I want to have like the average body fat, for myself. I don't know what that percentage is off the top of my head. Um, Currently where my weight stands, I'm a solid 175. When I first started my journey, I was 240. Um, so it's been a good chunk, and I've gotten down. But I think now that I've started like doing more bodybuilding rather than toning, I'm kind of getting a lot of that muscle mass that I've never really had. So I kind of want to stay around like that 160, 170 range, but I also want to not have like squishy body parts.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
Emotionally,
good
or I
shit.
guess internally rather than externally, I really want to focus on, I think, just confidence in myself. It's not that I have a lack of confidence. It's a lot of things that I just don't stand up for myself for in the sense of, and I really want to spend that time this year gaining control of my life back. I feel like it's gotten, I wouldn't say out of control, but it's gone in the direction that I've just kind of floated with. And I really want to put my feet in the ground and make sure I know where I'm standing.
Hmm.
And in terms of giving back, like beyond SigEp, I really want to put a lot more effort into like my long lasting friendships, and I really want to give back in the sense of, I don't know, I think making more of an effort for them. I think it's definitely been a thing that's lacking. Like I do my sick up stuff that's a separate category I'll touch in a second because I do give back in that aspect. But in terms of the personal giving back, I want to, like I guess really put a lot more effort in those relationships that I've been lacking with those people that have been, away from me. I want to give back in the sense of, I mean, besides like physically giving them and like gifts, happy birthdays, but just trying to be more involved and sacrifice, the time that I've been using so selfishly in that sense without sounding
Mhm.
pretentious, because I know this is starting to get to that route. But what I'm saying is I really just want to put more effort into a lot of those friendships, and I really want to give back all of that love and support everyone has given me, and I really just want to do that. Um, Long-winded, but I think it's important for me to start being a bit more external rather than internal in the psychological sense.
Mhm.
That Austin can you can dabble on it. You know what I'm saying. You're the psychologist here.
Yeah,
You get
well,
it.
I mean, you and I, although like our personalities may like have their differences, like I think we're kind of similar in that approach too. Like that was one of my goals for this year as well. Was, um, like obviously, I think that we are both good friends to people, and there'll be people that will acknowledge that. Um, but I say it all the time to people too. Like, there's definitely things that I can do better. Like, one of the big things for me is like I know I'm not good at staying in touch with people like outside of that immediate group. Like the people I'm playing games with all the time or doing that kind of stuff with, like obviously, or like texting every day. Um, but there's been a lot of people that have fallen off that I definitely still care about, and it's just I'm just terrible at being the one that reaches out first. So that was one of my like personal goals for this year, was being more similar to, I guess, kind of how you're saying, like giving back, like just being that friend to people and reaching out and checking in on people, because like I said, there's definitely people that I haven't talked to in maybe a couple of years, or maybe it's like one message every, I don't know, like 6 months or something about something
Mm,
random. um and I don't want all my friendships to kind of go that way. Like I got to meet up with a bunch of friends over the break, actually, that are some of my like best friends in high school that I haven't really talked to that much in a while. And that kind of opened my eyes to that, because we were just talking about different things. And I was like, shit, like we really haven't updated each other on our lives in such a long
mm,
time. And so to just hear some of that stuff and like have those conversations, like, man, I really miss catching up with people like this. So that is
mm,
one of my like personal goals. In terms of the physical stuff, I mean, again, kudos to you for that weight loss. That's impressive. um I think last year I'd like started to do stuff, and we were kind of holding each other accountable, and then I kind of fell off on it just because of different things. But I am back on the grinds now. I've gone, my 1 week at the gym so far has been fantastic. I'm feeling good. So I'm also hoping to just keep that consistent and see where that leads me. Um, One of the goals tied into my like health and nutrition stuff, like I tend to make like meals at home more than I eat out, I would say. Like I probably only eat out like maybe twice a week. But generally, like the meals I'm making at home, I wouldn't say are like the greatest. And so, like one of the things that I've been trying to work on this year, and one of my goals was, I want to try like 2 new recipes a week. So just like expanding like what I can make.
mm.
So I'm pretty excited about that. I know you're talking about like how you take your goals seriously and stuff. Like I said, this year is like my year. I'm trying to be a lot better about tracking a lot of that stuff. So I have like a bunch of different apps I've been using to also hold me accountable for that kind of stuff.
Ooh, what have you
Um,
been using?
so I have like we could have a whole discussion about goal tracking apps, because it took me a while. I mean, you and I both use iPhones, so like iOS processing stuff. Like I was like dabbling through all these apps. A lot of them like you can't find good ones unless you pay for something. So one of the ones that I'm using for like long term goal tracking, it's called Strides, I believe.
Ooh,
Uh,
okay.
and it lets you set like, I don't know how many on the free one, because I only have like I think 4 like long term goals set up on there, whereas some of my other stuff is set up on some other apps. Um, but it lets you track stuff for like that longer period of time, and will update you over the time. So like I have like 2 or 3 goals that I've set as like a year long goal, and it will remind me, like for my food one or my recipes one, it was like every week it'll like, hey, have you done your 2 recipes for the week or whatever.
Ooh, okay.
Um, so that's one I'll plug there. Um, and then some of the other stuff I've just been trying to get better with my like organizational and stuff. So like I have a bunch of other goals under an app. It's called To Do It, I believe. I'll figure out if that's the actual correct term for it. But I've been like I have like all these different projects under there, and like there's like I have like a personal one that I can break down into a bunch of subtasks and all this different stuff. So a lot of my like SigEp goal oriented goals and like some of my more personal ones like are all through there.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it has like way more options to do like subtasks and stuff like that. Like I could have like a bajillion goals in there.
Okay. Yeah, you also show me the app. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, they're pretty nice. Like I said, I've been trying to. I spent like a couple days. I mean, people know like I work in education, and so like towards the back end of the year, there was not as much stuff for me to do. So I was like spending some of those times like intensively looking into apps to try to figure out what I wanted to work best. But yeah, so that's my like what I say physical. Talked about some of the social stuff. Giving back. I mean, like I think a lot of it is going to be on some of that SigEp side, and I guess talking about the friendships too. I mean, that's part of the giving back as well. But I'm doing a lot of stuff with the ABC this year, and we've been doing a lot of changes that I'm sure we could go in depth in a different episode about. But my role has become a lot. I've started like you're on my communications cabinet, so you've been able to see some of the stuff that we are working on. I've been very excited about some of the projects that we're getting under our belt and being able to finally progress on, just because I feel like in the past we just haven't had the people, I haven't had the time to get all that stuff organized.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are like on top of our stuff. We have everybody on board to do things. And so now we're able to start like get the ball rolling on some big projects I've been trying to work on. So I'm going to plug one of them a little later on at the end of the episode, I think. But yeah, I'm just doing a bunch of cool stuff for the ABC right now that I'm really excited about, and I'm looking forward to give back as much as I can there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of I'm the VP of comms. I can get all these director names messed up, but VP of comms for the undergrad mentor. And I was able to meet him. His name's Alex Todd. He just got elected. So part of my giving back too is giving him some of that knowledge because he's a freshman, as a lot of the new e-board are. And so being able to help mentor a lot of those guys is going to be a big task this year that I'm excited for. Can be a little daunting, I'd say too, just because, like I said, there's like, I think like 4 or 5 of them are freshmen. So guys with not a lot of experience on what's going on. But they're coming in with a ton of cool ideas. And so that's like the one thing I'm excited about. So yeah, I guess that's more professionally. I think that covers a lot of like my main goals that I'm willing to talk about right now. Do you have any more that you want to kind of cover?
Nope, but it's about time for our lovely guest to join us.
Yes. So we're gonna
Did
do
you?
a quick we're gonna do a quick cut, and by the time we come back, we will be here with our guest Josh Miller. And we are back with the magic of editing. As you guys can probably tell, we are wearing, or I mean, at least Dom and I are wearing different outfits. But we're recording this on a different day, and we're joined by our guest, Josh Miller. Josh, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those of you who don't know you?
Mm-hmm. I sure can. So, for all those that know, my name is Josh Miller. My good old scroll number is number 208. I graduated back in fall 2014, joined back in fall of 2010. So, some of those guys that know me my notorious nickname Jimmer, which I can talk about it a little bit down the road and all that. So, I work right now as an engineer. Continuous improvements, what I do at Redline Plastics in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I'm married, of course, to my lovely wife Jessica, who went actually to Loras College, actually of all things, where good old Mr. Tom Barton went himself. And then, of course, I have my two lovely kids, James and Juliet. So, kind of a little spiel of myself right there to start with.
Sounds good. You forgot an important one. You're involved with the AVC now, and you have a new position. You're
Yes,
the AVC Director of Philanthropy and Community
that
Relations.
is
That's
correct.
an important title. But we'll talk about it a little bit from there. Let's start back at the beginning. Tell us, a bit about how you got involved with SigEp, like how you found out about the fraternity and those initial like conversations that got you
Yep,
started
yep.
with it.
Alrighty. So, my original involvement, actually, so for those who don't understand, I joined as a junior. So, my first year of college, I actually started off at UW Manitowoc, which is my hometown, for the first year. I then transferred to Platteville then for my sophomore year. I really didn't do too much my sophomore year. I was involved with Ultimate Frisbee Club just because I was still an athlete coming out of school and I kept myself in shape that way. Then also was involved with the University Group, which is a Christian fellowship group on campus. So stayed plugged in and actually with those fairly well. But then I kind of was in that point where it's like, I like doing these things, but it's like kind of for me, it's like I was always a mindset of networking and kind of being professional that way. So one thing that kind of helped with that was I'll blame Michael Schmitty for some of those guys I would remember him by being the one kind of introducing me to SigEp because I lived in Melcher Hall all the time and I became the Melcher Hall chairman. And back in the day, Melcher Hall was a hall full of men of all things. So there becomes a infamous list from Schmitty called the Melcher list of all the notorious nicknames that were named for each alphabetical letter. And yes, that list was confirmed and still exists. I still have to find it. I don't know where it went though. But Schmitty got me around actually around on the chapter that time. Kind of got plugged in with some different at least group of alumni like Nick Kirby, like Joe Peterson, Cody Harris, even some of the older guys too, like Mitch Wenzel, I know, Jason Gage, Rev, as everybody would know, Zane Hagstrom, Ethan Parr, Brian Kirschbaum. Some of the guys Chris Sykes actually, I will also include too because I know guys that I got connected with and glued with and all that. So they got me around the chapter that way. And kind of that's how I got into the chapter to start off with.
Perfect.
Okay. So with all these brothers that you were kind of hanging out around with, did it like how was the atmosphere with all of them? Like it seemed like they were really welcoming and everything, but like what was the time of the chapter then? Because it
Mm.
really changes every 4 or 5 years. The chapter flips and changes. So what was that time like?
I do remember that because I know it's like there was a little bit of stress and duress because actually, when I joined the chapter, this was actually at a point where the chapter was going downhill, and we were in a tough spot with national board of directors about kind of our numbers of the chapter because they had to do a. I think this would have happened right after when Eugene Worley graduated. It's like they had to do a major clean of the chapter just with a good chunk of the guys that weren't following kind of our core beliefs, and also grades were another factor too. It was more of the following the core beliefs of anything if I recall. So it was a big clean out before I joined and all that within that year before. So biggest push, of course, was on my joining class was get as many guys. So kind of lose focus on the recruitment, but we kind of lost that taste and touch of kind of member development program, kind of that discipline from that standpoint. We started building that back up that direction at least. But I remember that because I know the downfall with my class, the notorious class of 19 that went down to 8. That's
Yes.
that's the truth of it because most of the guys were some of it just because it's like grades were part of it. Some of it was because there were some other issues that happened between brothers in the chapter where it's like where we had to kick some guys out. But I know for some of those guys that did get kicked out, I remember Josh Fitzgerald was a good example where we had to expel him from the chapter, and that was tough for the situation. But it did make him a better man in the end, though, because actually he became very successful in his career and got his act together, which was good for him. It sucks, but it's sometimes it's like SigEp. It's been for certain guys. Sometimes it's not for everybody. It's like you would love to be it for everybody, but the realistic part is it doesn't benefit everybody in that way. So I know for some guys it was tough to see that happen, but it was a kind of a good wake up call too. Kind of how do we get how do we as undergrads get better with our alumni connections that way? So it's slowly started working that ABC, that undergrad connection, getting back together again better. Yeah, there's been those valleys, ups and downs as we've gone through from then till now. But that kind of was a big signal right there saying we need to get better. And that one thing that helped was some of the guys that were graduating right away. They wanted to get involved with the ABC right away, which was a big thing. Instead of some of the original phone members being the core group, it started kind of making a wake up call in that way, saying, "Hey, we've been undergrads and just graduated. It's like there's some things we know right away that where we've done well and where we suck at. Let's start tackling these areas." So, and then that kind of helped that transition of okay, being consistent in recruitment and all that. So the BMS scholarship was one of those things we really kind of really focused on driving at. But the other thing then too was it allows us kind of tackle things with like the Balanced Man program, revamping that, and really focused on development and retention, which is to me, for those that know, my last year as undergrad was VP of member development. So that was one of my core areas. My passion was just all around that.
So you had talked about like, you came in with a pretty big joining class there.
Mm-hmm.
What was the chapter size at that point? Like obviously there was an event that we're not going to really talk about in depth, but that kind of wrecked the numbers of the chapter at the time. So how many guys were there like when you came in and after your kind of joining class came in?
So when we were, if I remember correctly, rough numbers were between 25 to 29 before I joined. But after a class joined, we were at 45, I believe it would have been around. So, which was
go ahead, sorry.
Which was a big deal at least at that time.
Yeah, so, I mean that's still I would say that's still like pretty like that's a huge joining class. Like I don't know the last time we've had a class really that big. I mean I'm sure that there was some at some point after you guys, but I think like we had talked about this prior to this episode about like how important it was that you guys were able to get so many guys like pre the huge like recruitment push that went into the chapter a couple of years later, like down the line, because you had talked about the BMS scholarship there, but we hadn't even like gotten it to its best form yet. You guys were recruiting that many guys off of probably a very weak BMS at the time, like just getting started with it. So that's impressive on its own.
A lot of it too was where it's like some of it was where we had some core events, but a lot of the times we did it where it's like we knew where some of these guys were. We did a lot of it was impromptu. So I know some guys are really good with impromptu at the time. That Schmitty was a great example. That he was always one of those guys. I know Lucas Van Actern's another good guy. Nate Knaut's another mind of that. Even Chris Sykes too. It's like from that standpoint, just they come up with some of them ridiculous saying. It's like, and some of the guys be looking. It's like, what the hell are you thinking about doing that for in that way? But it's like, it was one of those things saying, hey, those guys came around and we actually got them that way of all things. So at that time, a lot of it was you had to be creative, think outside the box, and do a lot of impromptu. And sometimes it was like stupid stuff saying, it's like, all right, going to, of course, platters and of course, hammering down the chicken tender nights and all that. Those are fun nights, but it's like I knew the aftermath effects afterwards. Like, yeah, good old platters, like goes in, comes out. But they create actually good memories that way.
Yeah. I mean, going off of memories, that kind of leads into a good next question. What was your favorite memory from undergrad? Or memories, I'm sure that you have plenty.
If we just talk about his memories in general, I think I'd be talking for about a few days straight. So that's a good question.
That's okay. I know we put you on the spot
I'd say one of my favorite memories actually, and this ties back actually to me marrying my wife. So actually the very first time I actually met her ties back to actually Chris Sykes. So it was actually a Saturday, like middle of the day. I wasn't doing much at all. Just still living in Melchers, just chilling. Sykes texts me saying, "Hey Josh, what are you up to?" I'm like, "Nothing much, just relaxing, watching TV and all that." "Why? What are you up to?" It's like he's like, "Do I meet some girls?" And for me, young me at the time, it's like, "Hell yeah, let's do this." Like, it's like, all right, we're gonna swing over to Dubuque to the Alpha Sigma Alpha chapter in Loris, and actually make a few ladies some dinner and all that. And it's like I'm like, Chris, I'm a terrible cook. I've never really cooked it out before, which was very true at the time. As time's gone on, as I've gotten older, I've gotten better. My wife still argues at this point. I'm still not a good cook, but I was being different in that one. So Chris is like, "Don't worry, Josh. It's just spaghetti. That's the easiest thing you can make and all that." So Chris picked me up. We headed over to the old Alpha Sigma house at the time in Loris College. Met up, of course. Well, Chris is an old girlfriend back in the time. I know. and of course then my wife Jessica. So, and of course the one thing I remember is like, luckily Chris had plenty extra noodles and all that. I burnt the noodles, and my wife is like, "Ooh, what's that burn?" I'm like, "Oh shit!" It's like, she's like, "What are you doing, Jimmer?" It's like, how do you burn the noodles? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Developed a good laugh and all in all, but I made that mistake, and that's the one mistake I don't make ever again now is when it comes to noodles. Even my wife will say this, saying she has me as the noodle tester at home, saying, "Josh, is this perfectly tender and all that? Is this cooked right?" And it's like, and actually, I'll just scoop the water and be like, me with because I work in rotation molding, I can handle high heat with my hands, so it's like I don't have much feeling left in my hands. So I'll actually test the water, and she's like, "Why are you trying to burn yourself?" Like, that's the way I test stuff. Don't judge me. And it's like, just give it about a minute and a half more, and I'll yell like because we have Alexa, so I'm like, "Alexa, add on a minute and a half to the timer." But that memory was actually kind of where my wife kind of all things, kind of really liked me, fell in love with me. And of course, me, Mr. Dum Dum at the time, it's like, good friends at that time. So I basically friend zoned my wife for about a few years, literally before I realized like I'm the Dum Dum because it's like I didn't have my head on straight. And then finally, kind of the rest was history from there. Of course, trying to date her, and of course, when I pinned her, of course, and then for at least a few of the guys are maybe a little bit older than you that would remember this was when I proposed to her at my last banquet and all that. And for some people would remember, Delaney would probably give me hell for this, was my legendary 10-minute speech. And then about the minute and a half afterwards, actually popping the question. And then Christian actually, or Christian Santos Cantor, he now works as an officer down in Milwaukee. I still remember that kind of from the video in the background. I could hear his voice after when my wife was like smiling, shaking her head yes. Christian's like, she said yes. Yeah, it's like that was another good moment right there. Just ending my time as a undergrad SigEp, just knowing that she did say yes, and even the years after that, it's like there's ups and downs being married. It's just part of marriage, but it's been a fun ride right now with that, and just kind of blessings I have around me, just with my kids and kind of what I've been involved with too now as I've gotten older.
I mean, I would say she's a special woman for being able to still fall for you, even though you burnt food for her.
And put it with all my shenanigans that she's got to deal with daily, which she's a blessing deep down inside, which is the greatest thing for me. So,
yeah. I mean, those are two pretty awesome memories. I mean, being able to say that you met your wife through this whole, special occasion, and then now being able to propose at a banquet is pretty sick. I don't think that's something that's ever been done before. So,
I know probably the next closest thing I remember from memory was when Joe Peterson pinned, of course, now his wife Michelle. I know that was always a fun one because the thing I remember that Joe always struggled with was he said, "It's like, guys, I really suck at singing the song." It's like, I need help with this. Like, and of course, like, Joe, this is easy. It's like, and this is before I pinned my wife. So, and of all things, like, I botched. So another thing that was funny too was when I pinned my wife, it's like I botched it first, and Knowles had to save my ass. I should be humming the melody because like I was off key, and it's like, and I'm a choir kid in my past, so it's like for me, it's like that should be easy. And it's like I just botched it. I'm like in the back of my head, I'm like, oh great, now I'm going to screw this up. Go figure. This would happen to me of all things. So. But they saved my ass actually with that one, so I do own that still probably forever and always.
Well, I mean, you got some good brothers there that are helping you out, so always appreciate that.
And now they're here roping you into the AVC.
Yeah, suckering me in some way somehow, but you know what? It's worth every penny of it.
Yeah. So what spurred your involvement with them?
Say that again one more time, Don.
What spurred your involvement with them? What kind of got the idea rolling?
Well, I think, for me though, one thing was I was at home for at least for some of you guys know I'm always heavily been involved with different things. So I love the outdoors. So I'm a diehard fisherman. So a lot of guys will see me. Of course, I love to fish for like walleye, crappie, muskie. If I can get a chance, it's been tougher now because usually I fish with my dad for that. He's gotten a little bit older and just the old cast for muskie. It's a lot of cast and heavy baits, and that wears you out over time. I can still do it, not a problem. My dad, though, it's like he can't keep up with me. So it's one of those things like I just need someone to be able to be willing to try with me and keep up with me. If they can do that, then it's like I found someone to really get back in it with me then. But we do a lot of walleye crappie fishing. I'm a big deer hunter, so I always take pride in that. So any deer I harvest count as a blessing. I'm one of those that's like, hey, I don't need to keep all the vans and sticks for myself because for me it's like I'd rather share that because you know what? Now I know everything's getting used out of that deer, and I've always not been a
Mm-hmm.
waster. And
Mhm.
tying into that, so like I said, be involved. So and kind of use every opportunity you can. So like the last 12, I just ended my 3-year term from at least be involved in my church, kind of being our chair in our stewardship committee and all that. And we were kind of going through like a rough patch, kind of. And that was during that kind of like right at the end of COVID and all that too. Was
Mm-hmm.
our stewardship kind of fell downhill a little bit, just kind of reconnect with the congregation, getting our congregation involved, kind of with doing the like getting back in the Bible class, so like getting involved by volunteering and all that stuff. And some of the things was that stewardship was tied in so really so difficult with because one thing we were was part of the volunteering kind of involvement was like the usher, creating the usher schedule, managing that and all that. And I know my chairman predecessor before me, Ashley, he helped find actually something in a software called MSP, which actually does all the work for you. And it timed out well because for me, it's like I have a knack for solving tech stuff with tech and all that. Where before it was a Excel spreadsheet they created and filled it out that way manually. So it took just for with like 3 guys about 40 to 80 hours each just to get that schedule completed. So it wastes a lot of time versus now that's more of just following a step like this. This takes maybe like 8 hours for one person just to finish that all up, and then it almost self manages. Mine is like some day to day management you have to do from there, but that saved us a lot of time from our committee just to
Mm-hmm.
stop worrying about doing that and really focus on kind of what we were meant to do from a committee to serve our church in that way. And two
Mhm.
big things I know I did from that was we were struggling actually with our kind of knowing how to give back, so offerings and all that. So one thing I did 2 years ago was I found at least our because I'm Wells Lutheran, so our main Synod website had actually different stewardship programs we were finally able to take advantage of. So I took advantage of what we call our 10 for 10 program, which focuses on kind of our offerings and our given how we give back. That gave a huge spurt back and kind of reignited a flame a little bit. A lot of members of the congregation kind of hit a real rough spot financially, and we're at just because we have, of course, a church and we have a Christian day school where my son goes to, and now my daughter will be going to next fall. And just from there, it's like, how are we going to be able to support and sustain this? And we were in that rough spot. There's some things that we voted on, like school choice account, which will help, but there's things we need to get better at. But I think that when we launched that program, and I think the year afterwards, when we kind of hit that spot where our chairman talked to the congregation about that, I think that program helped get at least the mindset of some people kind of change things around. And it made some people open up their eyes, saying it's like, oh, it's like I didn't know we were in that bad of a spot and all that. So it's like then open their minds and hearts up in that way to be able to give back to church, which helped us in that way. And the other program that we just ran this last fall, which has been probably last year my term, was really focused on kind of the basic things of our stewardship. It was God Lived Lights, it was called. We focused on like on Bible class on back in attendance and all that. So that's one thing too. Was the other board where some of our leaders of our boards and all that, they struggle with attending these things to kind of stand up for that. So I took a big practice in doing that. I only missed one, which is funny because actually I was out of town for, but my kids made it. So of course I know one of our pastors, Pastor Beck, gave me a hard time saying, "Josh, it's like your kids made every single one, but you missed one." It's like I know I wanted to make that one too, and it was actually in a good series they were actually doing for everything for that, which I got bummed about because I wanted to be there, and it's like, and it actually rubbed off on some people that weren't doing that. So we got fewer people, not as many as you want to, but we got people at least looking at that, starting to get more plugged into the church. And I know one thing I saw even though it's like my term was up and I ran for our board of education and didn't get elected in for that, which is not the end of the world because then for me it opened more time now I'm looking forward to for AVC for SigEp, which was a big deciding point if I got elected on or not. We got some new people at least now involved in different boards now, which I'm glad to see because we needed to do that, just kind of to wake up and like I told our board stewardship saying, guys, I may be not in the board. I'm still a good resource. If you need to ask, but just kind of plan on the time what you need me to do and what you need from a support standpoint. I'll help support what you need for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is a good thing because I know at least the guys that are left on the board are driven and know what needs to get done. So it's like walking away from 3 years from serving that board. I know they can do wonders and do great things. So it's just a matter of just kind of keep on keeping on, as I would say.
Yeah, I definitely think it's tough to like kind of step away when you're so heavily involved like that and doing a lot of stuff. But I mean, we kind of appreciate it now that you're on board with the ABC now, and we can use your skills and resources. But yeah, so like at the beginning of the podcast, I talked about you got this new position. So you came
Yep.
in as a trustee last January, or
Correct.
last April, sorry. And you were kind of just a trustee, and then now we've done this big overhaul, and we have all these named positions that I'm not going to go into full detail about this,
Mhm.
but so you have this new position, you're the ABC Director of Philanthropy and Community Relations. So kind of
Yes.
talk about what that role is, and like what you're looking to do with it, like some of your ideas for it, because like I said, a lot of these positions are like new. We just elected
Mhm.
these kind of things in, and so we're still trying to find what we're looking for, but we're hoping we're going to do some good things with it. So,
Yep.
why don't you tell us about it?
So one thing it's like with this new position, kind of with focus on community and philanthropy. So I did spend some time talking to our ABC president, Mr. Chris Yerkes, as we all know and love, kind of about this, kind of some goals and some thoughts on how we want to tackle things and some suggestions. So kind of Yerkes kind of mentoring me in that way to get my mind wrapped around how to approach things and just let me kind of run from there. So one of the goals that I have, I like to desire, would be at least for this year, is to be able to do something. It's with the goal of doing something joint between undergrads and AVC to because that's kind of the core things developing keeping that relationship close with the undergrads, but also we as AVC to be able to serve and help on that way too. Or at least one kind of joint philanthropy event, or at least a program we can do for this year. It's I think before we can get there first, I think just developing that core team. So one of the things I'm looking at doing is like my goal is to get set up within the next few weeks. Of course, like to get a cabinet created. So my thought right now would be is two undergrad members and then two members from the ABC or at least alumni. It doesn't have to be straight from the board of trustees. It could be even any member from the alumni at all. I could pick like a Delaney or a Nina as an example, or even like a Rachel Gillerstead.
Yeah.
Like I said, doesn't have to be one of the men from the chapter. At least maybe a wife or someone that's got ties that way. Have done that. Just having that
We'd
knowledge.
actually we'd actually encourage that it's people that are not necessarily on the board. We want to
Exactly.
expand to new people and get them involved. So
Exactly. And like I said, it is. I think sometimes we get stuck in that rut too from ABC
Mm-hmm.
undergrad saying so we have to rely on everyone else. Like the one that I've learned in my career, especially now I'm looking at in this position, is like don't stay locked in one spot. And it's like asking, and it's like it's okay to ask and feel stupid about some things because you know what, you're not gonna have all the answer right away. I've learned this in my career from 11 years. Like you got to have that mindset saying it's okay to ask a stupid question. You know what? If you ask a stupid question, two things: you're gonna get the stupid answer, which you're like, oh, duh, or you're gonna answer you're not gonna, which is like, okay, I learned something good from that. Now I got more knowledge that I've acquired and learned from. Okay, when it comes to this, X, Y, and Z happens, so on, so on, and so on. So
No, I feel that my job is asking questions all day, every day, and sometimes the engineers look at me like, "Why are you asking me this?" Oh, well, I need the confirmation. I need to be sure.
exactly, and like I said, as an kind of time with as an engineer, especially from CI, more questions to ask is always better because sometimes you think when you see the process, you know the process that's in front of you, but really you don't know shit until you
Yep.
actually kind of well not only ask about it, but even sometimes the best thing to do is get the good old hands dirty and all that. Actually say, hey, let me do this. Let me see how it is. So, and then you
No,
realize like,
yeah,
oh, that's why this sucks for that. And it's like this person does not like this process because you have to do this and this. Like this is stupid. Why are we doing that way? Or better yet, I just found it actually ironic within the last week we had a because one of the things too I focus on too for my work is safety is a big driver. So we did like an injury with one of our CNC operators. They had to do like an in cycle process, a hand trim process of routing out a hole. Well, the fixture that they had for that design is basically a hand grip, and of course they had a router, straight router hole. Well, the straight router actually goes right above the top finger. We're lucky that operator didn't lop off his finger in the process. he just nicked it. So it's like, thank the Lord. But I looked at it, it's like our supervisor. This was on second shift, which timed out perfectly because I was going actually right back to work actually for our success at least walkthrough with our second, third shift supervisors. And that was just, and our second shift supervisors brought out to me saying, Josh, can you take a look at this? I'm like, right away, it's like, and I know our operator's name was Toby. He's like, Toby, show me how you put that fixture on a handle. And it's like, and he asked me saying, Josh, is that how you hold the fixture? It's like, and how I see it visually the first time, that's exactly how I hold the fixture, and I can see why you're going to get hurt. So luckily I was able to stop that issue, and actually, even though I off from work today, my boss messaged saying, where do you put that fixture, Josh? Like, I put it on my desk right now. It's like, is our maintenance lead Keith looking for that? Yeah, he is. Like, oh, good. He's got the work order then for what I have for respect for putting that handle on then. So we add a different handle on so that way the operators can grip that fixture differently versus holding that way, which will hold better in the part actually. And you ain't going to have your hand near the rotor out, which like that's a common sense one's like, why did we do this right away? But good example of asking questions and actually getting your hands dirty with the process that way. And going back to philanthropy, it's the same thing. It's like you got to get your hands a little bit dirty and kind of get delved in that way. Do we know which philanthropy we're going to do? Not yet. But there's so many good options, whether it be something local or if we want to look at something national. There's good options at least that should help us in that way. And I look at philanthropy too. It brands and creates that image for yourself in that way. And kind of go back to undergrad and kind of in my career, a lot of that stuff where MDev at least relates to it, I always like tie back towards brand image and growth development, continues to improve in that way. So, which is ironic because a lot of my career that I've done things ties into that. Even the things I've been involved with outside of work have plugged into that. So it's how do you always keep that image of yourself looking as best you can? How do you keep growing, improving, and retaining the quality of what you have? From that standpoint, it's easier spoken than done because a lot of it just where you have to sometimes get down in the weeds, the nitty gritty, and be able to grind at it. And there's some days where it's like you see the fruits of it. There's some days it just where it's the failure you see. You just want to get flustered. It's like, why am I doing this? But then you realize like long-term picture, it's like what the why of that will be is we got to stay focused on and just keep nickel and diming. And that's, like I said, it's tough to nickel and dime, but it's a mindset. Once you get into it and you live it, it becomes natural and you can live that process as is.
It's funny how that works sometimes, right? But I mean, that's why we got involved with this fraternity in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I hope.
So we wanted to kind of do a little sidetrack real quick. We wanted to ask about something, and you're totally welcome not to talk about it if it's not something you're too big on. But however, we wanted to know if you wanted to dive in a bit about how about the wedge.
I was waiting for this question.
Now you don't have to, and that's totally okay. We have a bunch of other questions, but you know it is a big thing, and everyone does know the wedge, and everyone does know.
Yes.
Well, not necessarily everybody.
Everybody knows the wedge and kind of the history of it. So I'll get more kind of when it got named after me, kind of the before. So make sure we understand before the wedge was not originally named after me. And Jurgis will still probably make this argument today that it was not named after him originally. Because the name before it became after my name, this was Christopher P. Jurgis Wedge Award. And so it was named after Jurgis, who did plenty of toolist things. So ironically, I was not his family line, which is probably a good thing, even though Rev was my big brother and still judges me probably this day about some of the toolish things I have done and still do it today. But then again, those toolish things help create good success in that way. So I'm willing to argue that one right there.
Chris is going to have to come on now and argue that.
Exactly. He's going to probably have to argue saying it was named after this one. Well, it could have been named after a few other alum, but of course, with the policy, of course, being no alcohol can be involved. Say that I know a few of those alum from that way, and there's a few guys in my chat, my timeline that should have got the wedge named after them, but they were smart enough to have alcohol involved in just in the stuff they did. And usually it was where I got a name after because I'll save their asses from that because I was sober as can be. Go figure. But the story and how the wedge actually changed from the Christopher Jurgis Award to, of course, me, of course, belovedly. It all started actually. For those that remember, so the original wedge actually had, of course, when you got nominated, you won the wedge, you had your name written on there. Then after that, every time you won it, you had tallies put on the wedge for that mark there. Jurgis originally had on there, if I recall, was 17 tallies. So I tied him. And ironically, of all things, Jurgis actually was coming back to Platteville to give a presentation on his career in NASCAR and on what it all takes to be. So he stayed actually with us for a few days. So I actually saw his presentation. I loved his presentation because there's talked a lot of good things from application that he took from school, how he took it into NASCAR, and just some of the things he was able to do and all that. So it was pretty neat to hear that. But kind of tied in that like the day after that presentation. So this was when we lived with the old house, not the original house on Pine Street, but we were living right next to campus. So we had the carriage house set up, at least for those that can remember. So I was living actually in the carriage house at the time. And of course, who would eventually be my roommate for my last semester, and I was Jason Benarski. He was living in the main house. So Benarski's actually up in the carriage house coming downstairs for a bit. I was actually in the main house going back at the carriage house. I don't know what the hell I was thinking of what I was doing, but I was walking by Benarski saying, Benarski, I'm going to force a fart in you. And he's like, don't do it, Jim, or you're going to shit your pants. Well, stubborn Polish me of all things forced the fart. I'm like, oh shit. He's like, you fucker, you shit your pants, didn't you? It's like, no, I didn't. It's like, dude, you did it. He's like, I'm gonna let everyone know in the chapter about that. And you're sober still. It's like, no, you ain't saying shit right now about this. It's like, I'm gonna find a beer right now. It's like, nope, too late. Don't it counts. Like, you fucker, you. It's like, don't nominate me. It's like, literally goes in the house saying, Jimmer shit his pants. I'm like, so I just walked right up the carriage. I took care of that issue. It's like, and it stayed quiet. It's like, okay, I'm getting Barski trashed off his ass right now, so you don't remember shit. That didn't work so well because come chapter me, and when Jurgen was still there, Jurgen saw it's like, oh, you're tired of me, Jimmer. It's like, you think it's gonna, overpass me, and we'll have to rename it. It's like, no, it's not gonna happen. Benarski looks at me, biggest smile ever, and I meet Jimmer for shitting his pants. Like, and Jurgen's like, what the hell happened? And it's like, what this? Like, Benarski laid the story out, and it's like, you motherfucker. And I nominated that. Then, of course, right after Benarski again, I nominate renaming the Christopher P. Jurgis Award the Joshua Anthony Jimmer Wedge Award. It's like, and Jurgis like, I'm second consenting that right away. Boom. I'm like, damn it. And yeah, the rest was history. It was named after me. But there was a trend where I think you guys might have remembered Leonard Balish. He was on track. But I know it was a time where it's like people, and it's like, stop now, people for the wedge and all that. But he did enough Tula stuff where if I did the math right, technically he would have surpassed me. So it should have been renamed the Leonard Balish Award. It never was. So my name still holds on to it still. And I don't know if the undergrad's going to surpass that. It's kind of like, I'll say Tom Brady's passing yard record. I don't think anyone's going to touch it.
You just compared yourself to Tom Brady for. I love that.
Barton would love that if he hears that. I'm going to say, Josh, no Brady. It's like, yeah, it's the only rings I got on right now.
Man, you're a brave man for coming on and telling that story to everybody that doesn't already know it. I remember coming to my first chapter meeting and like when they introduced it at meeting and we were talking about it, and I was like, there's no way this is a real story. And then I was able to hear it from you like some years later when we first met, and it was just it was iconic.
It's a very true story, but it's sometimes you look back at stuff, it's like some stupid thing you do. It's like, why did I do that? But then you look back and kind of chuckle. It's like, it's part of the ups and downs of people's lives and all that. It's like, you're going to live through the good, you're going to live through the bad. And that's one of those funny moments. I think talking about that a little bit too, I know one of the more serious moments was, I don't think a lot of people know this, and I'll be okay talking about this too, was after I was going, for at least those who know, it's like when I joined the chapter, it's like I started off good, but I kind of was going downhill at academics grade wise, and I did a downhill spot, and where my dad kind of woke me up saying, dude, you have to get your shit together. And I remember that standards meeting I had where Canales was chaplain at the time, and it's like he still put me in Formation B, but then he worked with me and kind of get my shit together. And I realized I was a mechanical engineer at the time for my degree. And also I had my head over water, and I was terrible with time project management at that time. So I was an RA, so I ended up losing my job as an RA. My grades were tanking, and so I was struggling. So it's like I got my shit back together, changed majors to industrial technology and management, which, you know what, that's probably the best thing for me to do. And I look back, it's like, why didn't I change it earlier? Just because it it made sense for my degree and how I viewed and approached to handle things, being very interactive, hands on that way. It's I've
Hmm.
always done my work in my career as of today, but that allowed me to get my feet underneath me, get me right direction back. So my GPA, it's like also my undergrads are probably crushing GPA, which I'm okay with. I accept that. Ended up an average after that was about a 3.3 roughly. I was holding, which
That's
was
pretty good.
much better than where I was at. Which, but like I said, I know some undergrads right now are kicking my ass, but you know, good for them. Keep it up. I want to see them push for greatness in that way. But after when I was kind of going back up a little bit, so I was going back. There was another tough time where it's kind of was a heart attack for me personally. Kind of gave me another wake up call. Was I nearly lost my life in a car accident actually when I was coming home from, and this was actually the year after that would have been when I got my shit together. Winter break. I was actually bowling actually for late deer season with my dad. And of course, of all things, is like usually we tell each other, especially in the road we go off of, never to walk in the middle of the road, especially cars actually going there about 70 miles an hour, and
Jeez.
doing 55 on a country road, and it's a narrow and high road. It just happened that, and my dad actually had the old red Dodge pickup I used to have for a while. Well, he parked too far off on the side and just got stuck in the side of the ditch and started revving it back and out. Got stuck further. So luckily, one of our buddies who's actually just passed away about a few years back, Dean Collard, he brought his truck over with the chains on. I tried pulling out. There's black ice in the road. There's no way he could pull it out. So he's going to go up to his grandpa's old barn. It's about a couple hundred yards uphill over the road with a big blind spot where cars couldn't see coming. Went up back that way. There's a truck coming the other way, and kind of beforehand, just to kind of make sure everyone understands correctly. My dad asked me, saying, "Hey, of all things," and I wasn't even thinking about this at the time, stay on the road. I'll make sure everyone understands. I'm in my full camo still, so it's pitch black by now. So
Hmm.
it's tough for me to be even seen. So I'm in the middle of the road. I remember Dean yelling back down because that truck actually came over the hill. Must have saw us just last minute. Couldn't, no reaction on hit the black ice spot. Was going what the reports said about 75 miles an hour he was going. So he was losing control. Dean yells back down, "Get out of the way, guys!" It's like that truck is out of control. I couldn't even hear him. The one thing I can remember seeing the head of the truck, I'm out. Next thing I remember is waking up on the passenger side of my truck. All of a sudden, see a bunch of faces, of which I remember at the time were EMTs. I freak out, try getting up. They grab me, pin me down, saying, "Do not move. You are lucky to be even alive right now." And what I found out was that I must have reacted in the right way. The truck hit our truck, our truck. The back of our truck hit me, threw me 30 yards head first into the ditch. And the snow, the heavy snow from that night, gave me enough cushion to save me. Otherwise, I would have snapped my neck. Either I'd have been dead or I'd be fully paralyzed. I was
Wow.
blessed to be able to walk away from that one. And the only thing that I had from that night was severe concussion. So it was like I was in a concussion protocol for about, well, those few nights. Kind of was up in the hospital, and then I had a follow for about a week and a half afterwards with specialists. I was up in the Green Bay area with that, which I was clear to go because my parents were nervous saying you had a hard enough hit where it's like they weren't even sure. It's like, am I able to go back for a semester for school? But I was cleared for all that. So, and that was
Wow.
kind of one of those things. Just when you talk about kind of about life can be taken away from you that quickly, it's like my life literally flashed beyond my eyes and all that. It's like I'm blessed to still be alive and function normally. I know some other people. I know, as we all know, kind of our late brother David Evans. He passed away. At least he's at peace in that way. But not everyone does make it in that way. And just I look at it back at that way. It's like where I say I'm blessed. I'm blessed because it's like you have those things in life to remind you just who you have around you is such a big deal. And it's like sometimes you don't know if they're going to be there next day and all that. So, and it's been kind of I know because I've been going to like a lot of funerals now like the last few weekends. More an older family and all that, but I know one of my dad's good buddies who was like one of the nice guys in the world and all that lives in Green Bay. He just passed away of heart issues, and he's only just 61. So it's just makes you realize, and it's like life can take you away from this world very quickly, but be blessed with who you have around you. Trust in those that you have and build them up because you don't know the time or the hour that you may be taken away. That's a good reminder that way, just being blessed. And I use that kind of as fuel for myself. That's why I got more involved in my church. That's why I think after that kind of replugging back in the SigEp as undergrad, where kind of the next step is kind of my passion, my drive. Then when I took over for MemDev and kind of went in for at least some guys that know, kind of my big push for kind of growth development. And one of the things I still remember was that was a year afterwards and all that. And Pulsar sat down with me, I think during fall, saying, because that's when we revamped the BMP program. And we had a tough spot actually, because we had a lot of guys in Epsilon, but with Brother Mentor being changed up with the ritual, it was a good opportunity to kind of be able to push guys through and kind of get them from laps in that way, get through the full ritual. Because yes, Epsilon's technically the end point for a ritual, but Brother Mentor is kind of, and I don't want to get too much in detail with that, but is the ice in the cake, and that really, to me, that fully completes the circle of why we're in SigEp in that way. And when you get through that, there's things you'll get out of that it will commit. You'll be able to commit to and kind of use as a driver for yourself in your future, within as an undergrad and even as as an alumni for your career. And that's something I've taken out of as my driver, and that's why I do things kind of with my crazy dynamic, my passion that way, because it's how I view and look at things, and it's because you gotta look at it. It's like you're gonna have your wins, you're gonna have your losses, you're gonna have failures, but you know what? If you take everything in front of you as is and be blessed for that, it's only make you better and stronger. Even if it's something you may not like to hear or see happen, it's for the betterment of yourself in that way. So,
Wow.
And we are
That's an
blessed to
incredible.
have you with us. It's
Yeah,
been
for
definitely a
sure.
long journey, and we are really happy to see that you're continuously being involved and just giving back. And it's phenomenal to hear you tell your story like that, because
Yeah.
we are really glad you're here at the end of it all.
I think one of the parts of your story there that really hits home and like talks about like why I enjoyed this fraternity so much is like when you were talking about the your standards hearing with like
yeah.
your grades and making that switch over and stuff. And like I mean Dom and I think both like served on some sort of standards and like had
Mhm.
those kind of discussions as well with people or went through it ourselves. And like that's like you feel like you're at your lowest at that point, but like when see how those hearings usually go, and like the brothers are there to make sure you get back on track. There's a whole reason
Mhm.
that we're doing that is because they notice that stuff is changing in your life, and you need to get back on that path towards university. I mean, that's the real reason that we're there. But yeah, so like I said, I feel like that I felt a good connection to that just because I've sat in that firsthand a couple of times and been that person that's like, hey, like we're gonna help you get back on track with things, and sometimes it doesn't always go or work right, and that's just
Mhm.
dependent on the person, but at the end of the day, like that's what we're there for, and
Yes.
so
And one
yeah.
thing I kind of going back, it was standards on when, at least for those that have been in those tough spots. There's two ways you look at it. Either you can take the punch and let it bring you down and not change who you are, or be able, let be able to be open to that, accept that change, and be able to make those changes. I know some of the things I know when I went through that. There's a lot of things that was going on. Like I said, time project manager was one of the biggest things I had. The other thing too, personally for me, I was going through, and of course this was me when I was single. I was chasing after girls I should not have been chasing after, and I'll say actually, well, it's funny, but it's you look at it this way. I know Nick Kirby's wife Jillian actually. I will give her credit to that because I know there's two girls that she knew about. That's like Josh. Those two are not. These are not good for you. They're going to mess with you. And to be honest, they were messing with my head mentally, just from my personal life, but also affecting my academics and all that too. And sometimes, like you need people that to be tough on you like that way. And it's like I didn't want to hear that at first, and I'll admit I'm stubborn and Polish at times, and I didn't want to hear that. But Jillian was right about that. I look back at that, then ironically, kind of tying back into how I start. Of course, getting back to my wife and all that. I kind of took back from that. It's like okay, I'll be more of a help to the brothers, at least those that are in relationships in that way. Their colors are all things. I remember this still one night. Of course, like I was out. I wasn't drinking much. I know Hauser was probably more than blackout drunk. I remember. I give him, but of all things, he said probably one of the most truthful things to me that he was struggling for me because he felt bad because he's like he knew deep down inside. It's like so I kept hanging out with my wife and all that more and more just as friends. But it's like I was in that weird spot. I didn't even think about it at the time. It's like he's like Jimmer, you like Jessica that much and you love her, and so you know that. Do not deny yourself of that. It's like be the man that I know you are. Fucking ask her out. And he looked me dead in the eye over that, and it's like I literally was like it's like holy shit. It's like then I and literally the next day I started texting Ashley Jess and Ashley and of course my wife will give me shit about this too because I asked her out through text and my parents my sister still give me shit about that saying that's the weakest way to do it. It's like yeah so I'm still married to her still love her to this day. It's like but it's funny because in that when things when you least expect it kind of where you need that reality check and kind of when you need that where it kind of hurts the most. Those are two another examples right there where it's like I needed to hear those things as much as I didn't want to hear it. Actually, were probably the best things to happen for me. And kind of one of those blessings in disguise that it's like I'm hoping, like I said, Jillian and Eric are hearing this too because it's like they're big impacts in my life from that way. So I'm thankful for that. Like everybody that's been kind of I'm connected in some way, it's like I'm blessed to have my life in that way. Whether it be just a little bit of time I get to know them or even just I've known them for a long ass time. It's a huge blessing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So as we kind of near the end of this podcast and like your story of yourself, um, what is any like advice that you have to just the general audience or to the undergrads? You know, it can be directed at anybody, but you kind of talked about a lot of different things there, so that might be part of your advice. But just give us a little snippet.
Well, just something in general for I think for everybody. It's like live by passion. What I mean by that is like there's things you think you're doing that you're loving and enjoying, but I think sometimes you need to really do a gut check on yourself. Is this what I'm truly passionate for? What I want to do? If you're not and really doing that deep down gut check for yourself and saying I'm passionate for this, I love this, you're not going to do well. So, a good example is Ashley was not too long ago. Ashley with my wife, so she originally was a barista at Starbucks, making good money and all that, hourly and all that. She's making really good money and really good benefits, but the work hours and all that were ridiculous and kind of morale around within the store, at least here, wasn't that good. There was a lot of drama and emotions, and it was mentally draining my wife. And it hit her. It actually started hitting me and affected me in that way. And it's like, this is not working all right. And it's like, I know this was a tough conversation to have with her, but it's one of those things I asked her, saying, Jess, what's better for you, making more money or being more disciplined in how we manage our money in that way and just find something that's stress free and more enjoyable for yourself so you can do more things for yourself that way. And she ended up finding her job now. She works today is at in town here. It's called the Ace Spa. She works kind of as her business manager. She has more flexibility with her schedule. It's more midday, so she can stay up later, not be like forced to get up at 4 in the morning. Where for me, my schedule, I set the flex around it. This being manufactured, there are times where, hey, something's happening on third shift. I'm going in at midnight or 1 a.m. because of a product run or something like that, just because, or better yet, Thursday nights are I get my success walkthrough. That's 9:30 at night to about 10, at least both supervisors. And I may spend time with third shift supervisors for an hour at least after that. So I don't get home then until almost midnight. Then from there, so and I get up then the next day then for my usual work day that way. So I have that flexibility that way. But it's stuff that I'm passionate and enjoy for. But I think just when my wife made that switch, this in her passion, she loves what she does, and for her, she always jokes around because of the spa. She gets all the different trials and samples they do for free. She's telling her, so it's for her. It's relaxing, enjoying for her, and she's able to do more things. So she's starting to get back into it from like sound body and sound mind thing for her is yoga. So it's something she loved to do before, was never able to do with Starbucks because her work schedule was so crazy. And by the time she was done with everything, she was just tanked. And I remember she did get done with her work day. She'd be sleeping when I'd see her with the kids home, and it's like, oh boy. Now she's the one taking the kids to school, and then she the kids dropped off. She's doing her yoga and then right into work. And then she'll work some nights like 7 o'clock, but it's like then for me, I don't mind that because then it's like, hey, what do you want to do for dinner? And the classic saying, I don't know, what do you want to do? And then we go back and forth. And then finally saying, "Hey kids, what are you doing for dinner? McDonald's!" And you'd be like, "Really?" So that's what. Well, actually, ironically, that's what's going to be hopefully tonight. To be like what the kids are saying, "We want McDonald's." Where I'm like, fingers crossed, saying, "No, let's make them from home, fresh, is healthier and more delicious that way." But I don't. That will happen. We'll see what happens though after this. But
The one thing
that's
you always got to keep in stock is rice and pasta. That's how I
yes.
make my
Rice and
dinners.
That is
pasta.
actually a fact. Actually, I will say that, especially all jokes aside, it's another piece of advice I have to say. It's like when you're starting off after when you graduate and you start your career, it's okay to live cheap and poor now. I think some people are like saying, "Oh, I got money now." And it's like, yeah, you're making money, you can do some of the stuff, but guess what? You start investing in stuff that's going to burn away right away, and like long term stuff like a, a good reliable vehicle, a home potentially for some people. It's those are things that's like, and I look back at that too as a when I graduated as this budget and financial things. I wish I did better at because we could have done better with vehicles. Yeah, I'm old school for my father, where it's like if I have a vehicle, I will run it till it falls apart on the ground. That mindset. That's
Mhm.
who I am. Even though my mechanic disagrees with that at times, saying, and I'm like, Greg, we're gonna run this vehicle till I need to, or worse, or my kids will come old enough they'll start driving themselves, which will make me have a heart attack one day. But that's one of those things I'll say. It's like you don't, as undergrads, when you graduate, it's like you don't need to live the fanciest. It's okay. Don't let people judge you for who you are. Let 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 your work and your personal drive and passion do the talking for you, because you know what, that'll impact you down the long road. And I
You
know,
got 80 something years to build up your life to get all those fancy
exactly,
things. What you're not going to be able to build those things if you can't build your career.
exactly.
Mhm.
And
Beautiful advice.
if you don't build yourself and kind of your own image, how can you? It's like
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
seen so many people that are, I hate to say, like my generation on down now, where it's like it's all about kind of the me mindset, which there's some of that, but I think that's some of it where me being my Christian values and kind of my beliefs and my morals and all that, where it's like it's not about me. It's like it's about everyone else that around me. That's the reason why I'm at and where I'm at. And then some people are like, it's like, Josh, how do you get all this done? It's like, it's because I don't need to know everything. I just need to know the right people and let to get the shit done for me. Period. It's like you don't need to be expert on everything. Maybe just one thing you're good at, then you just know the right people to do the rest of the stuff for you to help you that way. And that helped build a lot of things for me. And it's like, my mom will give me a hard time saying, Josh, you wear all these beat up clothes. Like, you can work dressed on. She's like, yes, mom, I can. But, do you understand my work environment? It's like I have to keep reminding this constantly along with my sisters and my dad, even my wife, too, saying, I work in a dirty environment. It's like, I'm not going to wear the fanciest of clothes. If you see me in a suit, it's only for a few occasions. I'm either ushering for church or it's a special event, some sort where I have to dress up, which for me, as most people know, I hate wearing suits. You know, as undergrads, like I wore suits for the chapter meetings. I still hate wearing suits. You can ask anybody about that. I hate wearing suits. Personally, if business professional was actually blue jeans and a t-shirt with steel toe boots, I'd be okay with that. You ask Gary Warburger about that one, about how I feel, and he'd tell you that the exact same thing. It's like say it's called Jimmer Casual, but that's a story for a different time. Where when I'm back in town, I can tell everybody about where that came from too. But
Sweet.
yeah,
Well,
Well,
that was some
first and
incredible
foremost, we
advice
want
to
to
leave
thank
it
you
off.
for coming
Oh,
on. Secondly, we want to thank you for telling your stories
Mhm.
because it's really fun to have someone who's just a conversationalist because, sometimes it's like the BMS interviews where you sometimes get, yes, I
yes,
was involved in football and nothing more.
oh, those
And
are my
it's nice
favorite. The
that,
10-minute BMS interviews where you just cut
oh
them
my
off
God, I
afterwards and you're
want,
like, this person's not getting a scholarship.
um,
well,
but
don't worry. I
it's
know
really
for me,
nice to have the
some
conversation.
interviews I did for work for when my boss has me at the cover for some of those interviews for like our production. There's some people that are really talkative, where it's like for
Mm.
me, it's like I gotta keep the interview at least condensed within time limit, at least from that standpoint, and get everything out of them that way. There's some people it's like where it's like they have a good resume, but they're so quiet. And it's like I don't. I know one of my coworkers said you should hire the guy. It's like I'm not gonna hire that guy. It's like why? I barely got anything out of them. So it's like if something happens or something's not working right, how can I communicate with that? Either deal with probably, I'll call them social BSers, I'll call it that way through the interview, where I
Hmm.
can dig into that and say, okay, This is what they're going to be well at. This is what they're going to struggle with. Or better if I see anything that's familiar, it's like, hey, so and so, do you remember this person? Yeah, didn't we hire him on before? Yeah, why did we let him go? Oh yeah, attendance. Let's pass it on him. That's the other piece of advice I would say, kind of close up too. It's like I get it from a working standpoint, you have more flexibility, but if you can get your ass in wherever you work, think about your personal image in that way. It just shows that image right there that you want to get the work done. Yeah, some places are work from home, but I would challenge you. It's like the more if you can spend time at least in a plan if possible, if it allows you to, or at least your working environment with whatever building you're in, do that if you can. I know sometimes it can be cheaper just to be at home, work from home and all that, but there's some benefit working in an office in that way too, where you can create that interaction and kind of develop that personal connection and even camaraderie too. Because sometimes you know what, you get done with a work day, you're all of a sudden saying, "Hey, Josh, so and so's going out for drinks. You want to go?" It's like, hold on, let me see, honey, can I go for drinks? Really? Please? Sure. Yes. It develops camaraderie in that way too. So it's good to kind of do that. Plus, too, there's things like I said. It comes back to like I said before, where it's not all about what you know; it's who you know. Sometimes the who you know, even your coworkers, they may have things up their sleeve they can help you with. So, like for me right now, because we just bought our house back in the summer, there's some building project I'm trying to figure out. So I'm actually getting some good pointers and all that too from actually one of my coworkers about some projects that are cheap and simple to do where you can make look wow. Some will take time, but it's stuff I can do myself and I can save myself like on one project possibly $1,000 right there, which
That's pretty good.
I'm okay with doing.
Pretty good. Awesome. Well, as Dom was kind of saying, thank you for coming on and telling your story for us. And, if anybody's listening and is interested in working with Josh on this new position, the philanthropy director of philanthropy and community relations, I'll put his email down we'll put it in the description of the episode so you guys can reach out to him. Again, thank you for coming on, and hopefully we'll get you on another episode.
Mm-hmm. Also, Austin, too, if like for those that are interested, I'll give my phone number too. This is my work and personal, so be free to text me and all that, or if you want to call me, just let me know who you are and kind of all that, so I'm not like, who the heck is this? So my number is 920-901-9831. Again, that's 920-901-9831. So be free to text me or even give me a jingle and all that. It's like, that's probably one that I usually look at my emails and all that, but I know for me, if you're texting me like right away, it's like I will look at my text during the middle of work if I have to, or if I'm up in the middle of the night gaming and nerding out, I will text easily then if I'm raging at a game I don't like.
There you go, everybody. Text a Jimmer at like midnight today when you hear this episode.
You know his number, you know the time.
You know the time. I'll probably be in call 76 most likely, or mad, and we'll see what kind of mood I'm in.
Alrighty, gentlemen. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks again, guys.